Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today we are discussing one of my personal favorites, a watch I first saw back in 2015. It remains to this day a purist's Panerai and one of the best ever efforts by the brand in its modern civilian era. Keyed to history and linked to the origin of the brand, this is the Panerai Luminor 1953 Days PAM00605 Firenze. This is the boutique edition from Florence, which was the ancestral home of Panerai from the 1860s. Facility that was variously a manufacturing center, a service center, a retailer, and later the flagship store for the company globally. That original Florence boutique was the root of the firm that would in the 1930s make the transition to building combat watches for Italian Naval Special Forces, and that is the genesis of everything we associate with Panerai today. So this watch came out in 2014, and it was available on the basis of location. You could only get it at the Florence boutique, and they would only make 99 per year. And you could see this one right here is a Q Series watch. So this is part of the original 2014 series of 99. A lovely watch in stainless steel with an evocative vintage-style plexiglass crystal, 47 millimeters in the Luminor 1950 case that first debuted in 2002 on the PAM00605. This is the design that's historically a lot closer to the Panerai 6152 combat watch of the 1950s. The Alessandro Betterini case that we know from the 90s, that is a modern construction that's less true to history. It's well loved, but if you want to know what the original watches looked like, they looked a lot more like this. Now, in addition to being 47 millimeters in diameter, it's 16.5 millimeters thick, and it is 57 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip with a spacing of 26 millimeters in between the lugs. You can see, as with some Panerai models, we have the reference PAM00605 between the lugs up at 12 o'clock. This is an iconic watch, make no mistake. On my wrist, you could cover up everything but the outline and the silhouette. You'd know exactly what brand and what model. You can see big is the look. No Panerai watch is designed to look proportional, and while the lugs do hang out over the edge of my wrist, that's less offensive on a Panerai where you tend to read the fit from the edge of the case to the other edge of the case rather than lug to lug, so it sits square and 47 millimeters on my wrist. So I would wear this. I think you can wear this on a wrist of 16 centimeters circumference or larger. It is thick. Don't expect it to fit underneath the cuff, but if you have a smaller wrist like me, don't despair because this will still work, and ergonomically it wears great. We have a Panerai strap. You can see that there is a little bit of a pleating or a recess, some striations that remove material, add character lines. They make it more flexible and also more distinctive. We have a sort of Hershey bar like sunken print, Officine Panerai, hollows on the bottom to aerate the wrist and again improve the flexibility. You can see no crimping, no gouging. This is a Panerai factory strap in brand new condition. We have a matching Panerai trapezoidal satinated pin buckle, and then a case that's all of polish. You could appreciate that this is still very much upscale modern Panerai, as we have screws and bars retaining the strap. This is the way a lot of Paneristi prefer the watch, meaning they can easily swap out using jeweler's screwdrivers, and this doesn't resort to the spring bars that Panerai would start employing shortly after this model debuted. This is a much more upscale, expensive, and secure arrangement. The device protecting the crown, a famous article developed in the 40s, implemented in the 50s. This is how you lock and unlock the crown. A lot of watches have screw-down crowns, and historically the 3646 combat watches from Panerai were made by Rolex with oyster cases and oyster crowns, and those screw-down crowns would continue to work through the seals every single day because they were manual wind watches, and so every time you set or wound the watch, you were wearing down the crown seals. So the solution that Panerai devised was to have this crescent-shaped guard, which offers a lot more protection than a shouldered crown guard because a perpendicular impact can't harm anything, but it also allows this lever with a locking cam to compress and decompress the crown so you don't have that endless threading in and out. It's also hard to accidentally jump in the water and drown your watch because this is easier to see than a screw-down crown that's backed out a few turns. It's also easier to manipulate when your hands might be wet, sweaty, or gloved because you can dig your nail under the lever and pull it out, whereas a really tight screw-down crown can be difficult to extricate. Now, you see, I can wind the watch. I can use the time zone function that allows me to set the hour hand independent from the minutes while I'm traveling. And of course, I can lock everything back up. Look carefully and you can see that there's a little runner bearing, it's called the runner, inside the cam lobe, and that makes the action smoother as you compress and decompress the crown. It's also one of the most distinctive designs in all of watchmaking. I can cover everything but the crown guard, and you know what brand and what model. That is the definition of iconic design. Now, we do get a plexiglass crystal here, and that's what the originals would have had. It creates, first, a wonderful bubbly profile, but also a lovely off-axis distortion that is unique to thermoplastic. The dial is a lovely metallic brushed sunburst anthracite. It's a sandwich style, which is a historic Panerai construction method, where on the bottom you have a disc that is fully luminescent, and then on the top you place a stencil that includes the numerals and the indices, and that's what we have here. You could see that it is named after the city of Florence. That is where you would have gotten this watch. It's also the origin city of the whole brand, so very important to people who love the heritage of Panerai. Lovely evocative vintage open 9, open 6. You can see an ecru lume has been used here. It matches the rose gold hands and the printing on the dial. So this is sort of a fauxtina effect, but it's also a nice complementary color, and it works on that basis as well. We'll do a lume shot. You can see, historically, Luminor was a radioactive paint, but today Luminor describes a type of watch similar to the designs that would have worn that radioactive paint. You can see it's still very, very luminescent. Turn it all over. You can see on the reverse side, screw in case back. This watch has a water resistance of 100 meters. And then we have the large Panerai manufacturer caliber P3000, twin mainspring barrels, manual wind, 72-hour power reserve, 6 beat per second or 3 hertz. You can see it's braced against shock with a full balance bridge and a free sprung balance. And to make up for the slower beat rate, we have an enormous balance with a huge amount of inertia. You can see it's been designed to look like a historic Panerai with an Angelus SF240 pocket watch movement inside. So while we do have 3 separate bridges, and you can see they're split for easier servicing, the look is designed to read as a 3/4 bridge as it would have been in the pocket watch days. Also, this lateral satination is reminiscent of the rudimentary finishing on those early watches. Now, the finishing here is to a higher grade, admittedly mechanically applied, but attractive. Lateral satination. You can see the bevels are machined, but polished and handsome. We have sinks for the jewels. We have polished screw heads. We have satination on the wheels and then engine turning on the base plate. And again, it has that system that allows you to decouple the hour hand from the minutes and move that around as you leap through time zones. And with twin mainspring barrels, you have a more even torque release, so when fully wound, it doesn't gallop and gain a ton of time. And as it discharges, it doesn't, for example, start to lose a lot of amplitude and slow down as you get down to, for example, 50, 48, 30, 24 hours of power reserve left. You can also see the little 70s style OP logo on the case back as well as on the base plate. This is one of the greatest modern day Panerai watches and one of the few that I would really envision as part of my future collection. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.